Hey everyone, it's DL Walker here, and welcome to another episode of Step Up with DL Walker. Today I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Kerri Fullerton. She is the leader of the Diet Rebellion and a health at every size naturopathic doctor. She helps women overcome the side effects of long-term dieting, the frustration, the sense of defeat, the psychological warfare. Kerri helps them to step into a place of calm, confidence, and control so that they can have a peaceful relationship with their body and their food. And what she's most passionate about is raising a generation that doesn't look to their bodies for their happiness, self-worth, or confidence. Welcome to the show, Dr. Kerri Fullerton.
So, welcome, Kerri. Hey, Kerri.
Hey, DL, it's nice to see you.
And we're going to talk about something that you're passionate about, and it's the theory of health at every size. And the reason that I reached out to you is because there was a very controversial New York Post article a few weeks ago, and it talked about that is not possible, health at every size. And I know that you would be able to be the person to set the record straight. So here's your opportunity. Go ahead and set the record straight.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, health at every size is a controversial thing. It's been around for a while, and it's a concept that I know it was easy for me to embrace because of my own background and my own clinical piece with the people that I work with mostly disordered eating history, and this perpetual getting stuck in this weight cycling, where they're losing a few pounds, gaining a few more, and then back and forth and back and forth. And we've all seen it, right?
I've lived.
Well, yeah, I like to joke around that I dieted myself into plus sizes. I wasn't plus size when I started. And this is something that we're seeing, right? And the part that disturbs me the most is how young girls are starting now. I mean, back in our day, we started at like somewhere between 12 and 16, but they're starting as young as 6 and 8 years old now on these restrictive diet plans and trying to lose weight. And so when you put that on top of knowing that the number one predictor and consistent predictor for future weight gain is intentional weight loss.
Interesting.
And that is something that does not get shared enough, in my humble opinion.
Okay, so what you're trying to say, or what I'm hearing you say is that if you have the intention to be losing weight, that's the number one predictor that you will gain weight?
Within about 2 to 5 years.
Huh.
So the whole system is screwed up the way that we're approaching it. And part of that is because I believe, and this is part of the theory around the health at every size, is that we need to focus on what we have control over. And we don't have control over our weight. We don't have control over our hair color, or our shoe size, or how tall we are, or our body shape.
Sure.
What we do have control over are our behaviors. And so no matter what size somebody is, if we focus our health interventions on behaviors, and that's where we measure our success, then we know that we can get that person at whatever size they are closer to health.
So let me ask you 2 questions that just came up in the last sentence. What are the behaviors that are focused on, and what are the measures of health?
So, I mean, health is a tricky thing to measure, right? If we say that health is this, like, I know, panacea, that this ultimate destination that we can reach, then like most everybody on the planet cannot reach it, right? So if you have allergies, you can't reach that. If you have an autoimmune disorder, you can't reach that. There are many, many limitations to what health is. And there's many different measurements to health.
Sure.
So in this particular study, they were looking at diabetes risk, and they were looking at cardiovascular risk as their measures of health, which is very often what people use as a measure of health. Right. And so they were saying that if you weigh outside of your normal BMI, then you cannot be as healthy as somebody who weighs within the normal BMI. And we don't have enough time to totally unpack the many ways in which BMI is not a useful tool, especially on an individual level. At a population base, there may be some usefulness, but one-on-one, it's not helpful, because what we know from all the BMI studies is that it's only people in the very extremes of very, very small and very, very large where health risks are dramatically shifted.
So if you're very much underweight, does that mean anorexic, or does that just mean very low body weight?
Well, I mean, it depends, right? Because not everybody who has a really, really low body weight can be diagnosed with anorexia nervosa.
Of course not.
Just like anybody who's in a higher weight range, in my humble opinion, should not be diagnosed with obesity, because a fat body doesn't necessarily mean an unhealthy body.
And again, weight is just a certain measure. You can look at body fat. You can look at extremity body fat versus, central body fats, like a sumo wrestler, for example.
And you can look at blood pressure, and you can look at heart rate variability, and you can look at blood sugars. I mean, you can look at all these different measurements.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just within the physical realm. If we think of like health as sort of a pie, physical health is just one piece of the overall pie that is health, right? And we know that socioeconomic status, massive predictor in terms of health outcomes. We know that social connection, which is part of what has made this past year so hard on people, huge contributor to having positive health outcomes. There are so many things that our spirituality. Are we living within our values, or are we living against our values? It's another massive predictor. And yet, we keep trying to bring this back to being able to look at a body and decide whether it's healthy or not.
And I think that that's where the focus of traditional medicine has been, just to focus on the body. And again, and I think in some ways that's where your schooling came from, looking at the body, from the different measures and that kind of thing. And it's certainly where my schooling came from, dealing with the physicality. But one of the reasons why I'm doing this program and sharing it with my community is because if the physical is not getting you to where you want to be, and I think that it's very personal. My branch is fitness, and I say that, what's fit for me and what I need to do to feel fit could be very different than the person across the street or the person that I'm speaking to.
Yes. So yeah, that individuality is a key thing to consider 100%. And again, though, the focus being on, you had asked, so what are those behaviors? Exactly. And I mean, what's generally accepted as the health behaviors would be, from a physical perspective, moving our bodies. Mm-hmm. Right? Absolutely. And how I'm able to move my body is different now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? I have to warm up a lot more before I hit the slopes now. Whereas when I was young, I could hit the slopes and not do any stretching or anything, and it was good. I was good to go, right? Just our abilities, they change. Our capacities change. Speaking on capacity, that's another one of those healthy behaviors. Are people getting enough sleep? We forget how much, and I get quite irate and soapboxy, because when you look at the list of conditions that we have linked up to overweight and obesity, and then you look at the conditions that are linked up to insufficient sleep, they're virtually identical.
Wow.
Virtually identical. You're looking at thyroid, you're looking at sugar control, you're looking at hormone regulation, emotional regulation, all of those things that were like, you have to lose weight. And there's not very many people who are legitimately talking to their patients and their clients about the quality and quantity of the sleep that they're getting. And especially in our Western culture and our busyness, the amount of stress and anxiety that we're under, there are so many people who are underslept, and they're trying to exercise and eat their way out of that somehow. And it just doesn't work.
Yeah, you bring up such a good point. And again, I believe that, I was just making an appointment, and I need to get back to my gynecologist, and I have, some feminine issues, but I know she's just going to want to give me a pill and I'm not going to take it. I want to get to the bottom of this, this issue. And when you go back to the question of the thyroid and, the sleep and the other markers, do you think it's chicken or egg, and which is which?
Well, most of the studies that I have looked into definitely show that when people improve their sleep, and we know this from the diabetes studies, that even if nothing else changes, if they improve the quality of their sleep, their sugar regulation is improved.
Wow.
So sleep is monstrously important in terms of healthy behaviors and things that we can start to work on, that we can actually address and have a semblance of control over, although not always, right? I mean, if there's any young moms watching, I feel you. Patrick was not a sleeper. I didn't sleep. It was not in my control. There are times in your life where 100% it is not, like, you just have to work with what you have. But then it's being able to apply some self-compassion and understanding when during that time you're struggling a little bit more with your appetite regulation or with particular food cravings or some of the other things that can happen when we're underslept. And to show up just with more compassion and understanding, as opposed to giving yourself a harder and harder time, which is what most of the people that I work with, their inner critic is so incredibly well developed that it is not healthy at all.
Right. With regard to sleep, and I have to share with you that for about a week now, with the exception of one night, and it was the night of Super Bowl Sunday, which is a big deal in the US. I know you're Canadian, so it might not be a big deal for you.
I watched until halftime, then I went to bed.
Yeah, you didn't miss much. But going back to that, with the exception of Super Bowl Sunday, I have been able to sleep for a full night without getting up to go to the bathroom for the first time in about 13 years.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yes. And I'll share with you, and I believe it has to do with, I've done two things recently that I can attribute it possibly to. The first one is I stopped eating I usually stop eating around 6 or 7, and I don't eat after that. I'll maybe drink water, but if I'm thirsty, I'll drink. It's not like I restrict that. The other thing is I was extremely, and if you understand the association, I would really love to hear it, but I've been anemic, or I've had a diagnosis of anemia for about 20 years. And it got so bad in my last blood test, my doctor said, you need a transfusion. So I went and I got, not a transfusion, but I got IV iron.
Yep.
And I had 2 sessions of it, and I feel like a new person. So yeah, any thoughts on those 2 things with regard to sleep?
So the whole thing of not eating later in the day, for some people, can work brilliantly. Again, with my intuitive eating training and understanding, if you're hungry, your body is asking for more food. So I am never a fan of ignoring hunger. Just like you said, if I'm thirsty, I'm going to drink, but if I'm not, I'm not. Same with food, right? So if you're going to not eat after dinner, but then your body says, hey, I'm hungry, I would encourage you to eat. But then for some people, they really do need a snack before bed to keep their blood sugars steady, to get them through the night. So some people really need that. Very often, like a protein rich or a fiber rich something, so that they don't have a liver dump in the middle of the night to spike their sugars, and then they can wake up hypoglycemic and it can be a real mess. So for some people, you just have to play with it and see what works for you. The iron thing is so interesting, and I don't know the mechanics of it, but very early, I started practicing back in 2004. And one of my first patients was chronically anemic, and her insomnia was wicked. And when we finally finished getting her iron figured out, she started sleeping. Yeah. And that ended up being this consistent, and I still have not found a link to it that I can give you a mechanism as to why it happens. But it's really interesting that you bring that up, because it's something I've seen consistently over the years, but I have no idea why. It's so curious.
It leads me to say a quote that homeostasis is underrated.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I say that about intuitive eating and this, like most of the work that I do, it's really boring. You know, the diet industry and the like big boot camps and it's like the big wedding day and all the excitement and you're going to have everything perfect and it's all jazzed up and then you're married.
Mm-hmm.
And marriage is very different than a wedding day. And it's finding that beautiful harmony that exists in life that's balanced, where we don't have to have major restrictions or major over the top anything, that we can just find this nice gentle swing instead of these like big pendulum swings from I'm restricting and I'm being good on my diet to I'm eating all of the things. And then we keep swinging back and forth because neither one of those states is sustainable and neither one of them feels good.
Right, because you wind up beating yourself up if either A, you're not successful, or B, you go off plan.
Yes.
So tell me about intuitive eating, because that's a viable alternative plan that's sustainable.
It's wonderful. I wanted to, before it's going to bring me back here, but I want to go, you said, if you're not successful. And that sort of circles back to the health at every size philosophy and why I was so triggered and pissed off by the study. There was a million things, but they showed with their results, as limited and screwed up as the way they did it, they were still able to show that in every single weight category, the people who moved their bodies had lower risk. So they showed that moving your body is protective against cardiovascular events and for the development of diabetes. But then they had to follow it up with, but it's not enough. And none of us like to play a game that we can't win. And people who have been weight cycling or been in larger bodies their whole life are tired of playing a game that they can't win. And so the measurement of success being weight loss really gets us screwed up. And people stop doing the exact thing that was giving them that cardio protection to begin with. Right. So if I move my body because I want to be on the slopes and enjoy winter, I move my body because I don't want to be in pain, I move my body because it just feels good, whether or not that leads to weight loss, I am healthier for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And when we, do these dietary plans or we do that, people say, well, it didn't work. I saw a nutritionist, it didn't work. Well, what do you mean it didn't work? Well, I didn't lose weight. Well, that's very different than it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, if you can improve the quality of your nutrition, and more importantly, if you can, and this circles back to the intuitive eating, if you can improve your relationship with food and you can improve your relationship with movement, well, suddenly you've got this sustainable plan that is life proof, so that, you're not so strictly on track that then when, I don't know, a global pandemic hits or the kids are in and out of school every 5 minutes or whatever, that you can still honor your health. You can still look after yourself and enjoy the food, like actually genuinely enjoy the food. We've eaten together. You're a fun person to eat with because you enjoy your food. And it's exciting, right? To sit down with a menu and to try stuff out and to share and to have this wonderful social connection along with this beautiful nutrition, instead of this, oh my gosh, I can't eat here because there's nothing on the menu that's on plan. Now, don't get me wrong.
It makes it stressful.
It's very difficult.
Yeah. And again, you feel sometimes, depending on the person, and many of us will feel guilty.
Yes.
Or we won't want to go out to dinner with someone, because we don't want to put ourselves in a position to, be quote unquote bad.
100%. Yeah. And that's, in business, it's, missed networking opportunities. In life, it's life, right? There's people that aren't going to birthday parties. They're not going to Thanksgiving dinners. They're not going to any kind of events that involve food because they feel like they can't trust themselves around food. And I understand that feeling 100% because I've lived that. I get it. And intuitive eating, when I finally circled back to it, that would have been 10, 12 years ago. Yeah, about 12 years ago. And after postpartum, I had a relapse of my binge eating disorder, and was not in a very happy place, to say the very least. Interestingly enough, suffering severely with insomnia. Anyways, away I went. I went to a 12-step program thinking that this wasn't really going to be a diet. It was spiritual. These were my people. It was just a diet and a different name. Now, there was pieces of it that are brilliant, but at the end of the day, it was still about the food. And it's never been about the food.
No.
It's the relationship with food. And, if you told that, Kerri, all those years ago that we could have we don't refer to junk food or it's pleasure food, because there are certain foods that we pick just for the pleasure of it. I don't pick them for their nutritional content. I don't pick them because I'm like starving and I need to like get something in me. I pick them because I really just want to enjoy them. We have a cupboard full of those foods, and it's okay. And never in a million years, like I believed wholeheartedly that I was a food addict, and learned that I wasn't. And intuitive eating was the thing that I landed on once I came out of that phase of things, because I had already had my toes dipped in the non-diet, anti-diet world before that. But desperate times, I landed back. And then when I broke my abstinence, I went, oh, shoot, I did it again. I went on a diet and I just didn't even realize it. And so I vowed I was not going back there. And then I started doing all the research. And then when I came across intuitive eating, I was pleased that it was like, there's hundreds of studies that back it up, that people who do this are healthier. Their blood sugars are better. Their cholesterol is better. Their relationship to food is better. So they're not nearly as disordered in how they're eating. They're raising healthier kids. They're moving their bodies more consistently. And there's a process. There's 10 principles. They all work together. People like to cherry pick the make peace with food one, which is the there's no food rules. And they go, well, it can't be healthy if there's no food rules. Again, that's the pendulum swing way up here, and they're terrified it's going to go way over here where you eat all the things. And I 100% understand that, but it's not about that. It's about building trust so that you can have a cupboard full of treats and pleasure foods and feel 100% safe with them being in the house. It's about honoring, respecting your body's needs, eating when you're hungry, stopping when you're full, anticipating your body's needs. I wasn't necessarily hungry for lunch before my first patient, but I knew I was going to see you, and there was no way that I was going to be able to eat when I got hungry. So I ate first, it's taking care of your emotional needs, feeling the feeling. I mean, emotional eating isn't about food. It's about emotions. It's about respecting your body, wearing clothes that fit so that you're not, sitting there feeling uncomfortable all day. It's about moving your body because it feels good and it's what we need, as opposed to thinking about, I need to burn all those calories, People forget that stretching is a really important activity. Even though it's not burning calories, it is really good for your body. Those small muscle, so much of what you teach, like that's so important, but it's not gonna give you any numbers on your Fitbit necessarily. And so people dismiss some of these really subtle and yet incredibly important parts of self-care and respect. And that's fundamentally, we take care of what we respect. So we develop a relationship with our bodies that is respectful. And I don't have to like how my body looks to respect my body. I don't have to love my body. It's not a requirement for this work. I'm running a thing in my group right now, befriending your body, of just establishing that relationship again, knowing that it's had your back all these years, even if it's not working quite the way you might wish it had. It's looking after you every day. You wake up every morning because it took care of you all night long.
My background and part of my specialty is the foot and ankle. And a lot of people are very sensitive about the appearance of their feet. And, that's a huge industry. And somebody recently reached out to me about, curled toes or something like that. And it's like, be grateful that you have toes. And if those toes are able to work for you, then be very happy about that. And yeah, here's some things that you can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really important to you to go ahead and take care of this, then then yeah, I have some answers for you that you can go ahead and do for yourself. But
The focus is on the form, or on the function, sorry, not on the form, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that I can have a fit and flexible and incredibly athletic body, and it may not look like the athletic body that is, on all the
Right.
Instagram accounts right now, right? Like, it doesn't have to look like that. we my son put his head on my tummy and he's like, "Your tummy's so squishy, mommy." And I said, "Yep, it is." And then he said something about abs. And I was like, "Dude, I got abs under there." And so we did a plank challenge, and I won. But the point is, like, I don't have to have a flat stomach for me to have an incredibly strong core.
Yeah, that's a great saying. And that is absolutely true. And again, it's about, what is going to make you happy. And many people think that, oh, being skinny, I'm going to be happy. It's like, no, you have to be happy now. And those extraneous things may or may not fall into place, but you can choose how you're going to show up today.
Yes.
You're in control of your feelings.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I just thought about, what your son said to you, and going back, like, if my daughter said that to me, I would feel horrible. Like, the fact that it just rolled off your tongue and you were okay with it and this and that, that it really means you've gotten to a place of acceptance and joy.
I'll take it one step further for you. So he was at school in health class, and they were talking about the importance of a healthy diet or something, and they were sharing their answers. And one of the girls in his class said, "Well, if you get fat, you can't exercise anymore." And Patrick went, "That's not true." And the girl said, "Well, my mom says fat people can't exercise." And he goes, "Well, my mom's fat and she exercises." I was so proud of him. And for a multitude of reasons. I mean, the first thing, I'm like, in the world of fatness, I am still a small fat. I still have a lot of thin privilege. I'm white. Like, I have a lot of things going for me, right? But in the like standard BMI conversation, I am definitely outside of any medical people's comfortable zone. But he didn't use fat with the heavy like, it just describes my body to him. It does not mean anything. It doesn't mean that I'm lazy. It doesn't mean that I'm ugly. It doesn't mean anything to him. It just means I'm fat and he's skinny. Done. I was like, yes, we're doing it. I'm getting there. And then he had the confidence to share that in class. I was pretty proud of that little kid. Yeah. But you're right. Years ago, that would have crushed me. I would have fallen apart.
Yeah. I mean, and that's huge. That's really huge. So you've talked a lot about the steps in your program, and we've talked a little bit about your program. Tell us how people get in your program.
So it's funny, as we speak, my website is being rewritten. So kerrifullerton.com is the place to land from a website perspective. The easiest way is to book a connection call. They're free. We spend half an hour and we just figure out how I may be of service. If people are living in Ontario in Canada, I can bring my full naturopathic background and bring all of that to the table. If people are not in Ontario, then I cannot be a naturopathic doctor because I can't practice without a license outside of here. But I can still help tremendously with the intuitive eating, with body respect. I have a variety of programs depending on where people are. If they're just new to the process, then it's more of a learn more about these concepts and see if this is a way that speaks to you.
Right.
If people are, yes, I want to learn how to like bring this into my life, then that's a different group program. And I love the groups because I think, I don't know whether you said it while we were recording or before, but this is a radical way of thinking about things, to put weight loss on the back burner and go, you know what, I'm going to focus on my health and my behaviors and let my weight be what it's going to be, is you need a team, you need a place to be able to be supported and a place to go, you're never going to guess what just happened. And then I have another program for people who are really quite versed and they're really just looking for that camaraderie and that support through other people.
Yeah. And we put all this information again in the information below the video. So at any point in time.
And my social media handle is at the Diet Rebellion.
At the Diet Rebellion. Awesome.
Yeah.
And that will be in there also. So guys, take a look down in the information box and there'll be more about Kerri and more about myself. And with that, I will thank you so much for being with me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I really did gain from this conversation. It is a really, truly interesting way to put body type in perspective, and conversation that could go on for hours, but
indeed it could.
So that's why if you want that conversation to continue, go ahead and book in a call with Kerri and look into our program. So thank you so much again, and talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Step Up with DL Walker. For any information about our guest, it'll be found in the comments box below this video. For more information on how you can recover from injury, restore vitality, and gain resilience from disease and trauma, all in the comfort of your home, click the link on the screen. Until next time, take good care of your body, mind, and spirit. It's the only true home that you really have.